Today, I want to teach you some of the laws of marketing. These are principles that have shown up again and again in my sales and marketing strategy that drive results. When you know what they are and you can combine them together, you are going to see some pretty dramatic results in your sales. I want to introduce you to them. Some of them you probably already are using and know about. Some of them might be a little bit new. So let's get started. Hey there, this is Corinna Bench, and welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast. In today's market, it's not enough to just grow your product. You've got to know how to sell it too. Welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast, where we reveal online marketing strategies and tips to help farmers like you get better and more confident at marketing. Learn how to find more customers, increase your sales, and build a strong brand for your farm. Let's start the show. Well, welcome to episode 242 of the My Digital Farmer podcast. I am your host, Corinna Bench, one of the farmers at Shared Legacy Farms out in Elmore, Ohio. I'm also the founder of mydigitalfarmer.com, which is all about trying to help other farmers like you get more confident in your marketing and sales strategy so that you can grow a profitable business. How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the show. Big shout out to all of my regular listeners. I'm glad you're here. And if you are new to the podcast, thanks for checking it out. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Go check out my first 10 episodes. They are designed to be an on-ramp into the marketing lingo. So if you're pretty green when it comes to marketing, I always recommend that you start there. You can also get onto my email list. That's another great place to go if you want to get some training, because when you subscribe, basically I give you a weekly email for the first 3 months that's curated and designed to guide you through the most important things you need to know to become a better farm marketer. It's kind of like a crash course in farm marketing. So you can get onto that email list by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. And maybe after listening to today's episode, you might decide, yeah, you know what? She's a good teacher. I want to get into her space. So I encourage you to do that. Today's podcast is sponsored by my friends at LocalLine. Is it time to upgrade your e-commerce platform? I have just the solution for you. If you're still using generic e-commerce like Shopify or Squarespace for your farm sales, it's time to start thinking about using LocalLine. LocalLine is the all-in-one sales solution for farms and food hubs. We have been using LocalLine as our e-commerce of choice for over 4 years now, and we couldn't be happier with the software. The team is constantly updating and releasing new features like subscriptions functionality, a low-cost website builder, customizable storefront, and integrations with tons of marketing and sales apps such as ConvertKit, MailChimp, and even TextMagic. Now, unlike other farm e-commerce options, LocalLine is very affordable with no additional sales fees and no hidden percentages. They also offer high-impact, low-cost marketing services now for farmers. So you can have LocalLine write your email newsletter or run your Facebook ads or even create your social calendar for you, all at a very affordable price point. For podcast listeners, LocalLine is offering a free premium feature for a whole year when you sign up using my coupon code, MDF2023. So why not try it out today? Head to mydigitalfarmer.com/LocalLine and then enter the coupon code MDF2023. And now back to the show. Today, I thought it would be fun as we wrap up our year to take a look at some of the most important principles of farm marketing that are at play in your business that could be manifesting more sales for you. I have a feeling that you're using some of them already, but I thought it would be a good idea to bring them all out on stage, introduce them to you again, have them turn around, and see how we're actually using them in our business and imagine what we could do to perhaps dial them up a little bit more or dial them down. some of these are principles that you know very well and that you're probably leveraging very well in your sales strategy. But I have a feeling that some of them are perhaps new to you. And when you hear them talked about, you might get a little excited about how you can reposition some of your communication to feature that element more. Are you ready to get started? So let me start out first by just reminding you what marketing even is and what this is all about. So for me, marketing is any communication between the business and the customer with an intent to acquire attention or interest and ultimately action to buy your stuff for the right type of person. That's a pretty big, broad definition, but I want to make sure we're reminded of what this is all about. We're trying to acquire the attention of the right customer, the person that would love our stuff. We want to get their interest and we want to move them into action to actually try our product and see if it provides them with the life transformation that we promise. And there are a lot of different ways that we can do this in how we set up our communication. I want to bring those elements onto the stage one by one and talk about them. So as I do this, I want you to maybe audit your marketing strategy right now and ask yourself, okay, is this something that I'm using? Is this something I'm really optimizing? Or could I very simply focus on this element a little bit more here in the next few weeks and see if it makes a difference in my sales? Are you ready? So here we go. Let's talk about the first principle. The first principle of marketing that I think is really important is the principle of authority. It kind of all starts here because when people decide to invest in your product or service, they only invest in authority. You have to demonstrate your expertise, your priority, your authority in the space. Why do you stand out? Why are you the best? Why are you qualified to serve them? People don't buy stuff unless they trust the source, unless they trust that you know how to get them to their desired transformation. So how does this actually work in marketing? Well, perhaps you are talking about the amount of time that you have been in business. That's one common way that we see the authority piece being played out. Do you occasionally bring up that you've been doing this for a long time? Because if you have been in business for 15 years like I have been, you're going to have a little more clout than the CSA farm that's just starting. If you are a business that hasn't been around for very long, then you have to find other ways to tout your authority and your expertise to get people's eyeballs to look at you and take you more seriously. So some of those ideas might be to talk about case studies, to point to customers who have tried working with you and have experienced amazing results. And you tell their stories. You put it on your case studies website page, or you feature their story in an email, or maybe they have a video that you talk about on your social media in a reel, or maybe it's on YouTube. Maybe you create social media posts occasionally in your rotation that are speaking to the case study. Maybe you have a portfolio that you pass out to potential clients or that you release as a lead magnet. I'm thinking of people who maybe do flowers for brides. Like, you should have a portfolio that showcases what you do, and maybe you don't give it away. You just get their email address before they can have access to it. Okay, those are all examples of showing your authority. You can also be talking about the amount of customers you have or the amount of sales that you drive. You could also show your authority through your price. And we did an entire episode on this about price anchoring. Sometimes the elite price makes people think, why is there so much higher? Are they better for some reason? Our pricing can be a form of authority. I've also seen this done through results. So talking about the specific results that you get for your customers and being very specific. We'll talk more about that later, but describing the transformation, how it actually manifests for people in their lives, telling the story, taking the picture that shows the transformation. Credentials, sharing your credentials, or maybe you have some kind of certification. Sometimes you can see this on product descriptions in the online store where there's a badge. Maybe you've won a prize or an award for something and you talk about that. I also see authority showcased in language about who you have worked with or affiliations. Sometimes when you have a farm partner that has an elevated status and you can say, I work with them, it ends up elevating your authority as well. Okay, these are all just very quick list of examples of how you can demonstrate authority in your brand. But the bottom line is that you need to be doing this. Even if you're an established business, you should be talking about why you are the best, why you are good at what you do. Make sure you're pointing to that stuff and why it matters to the customer, because they're looking for that. If they're going to do a Google search and they're trying to decide between multiple choices, they're going to be making that decision partly on like who is the best qualified, who has the best track record, who has been around the longest, what are people saying about them. That's going to be part of their decision-making process. Okay, let's move on to the second principle of farm marketing that I think really drives sales, and that is the principle of social proof. Now, social proof is very close to the concept of authority. I almost lumped it in with the principle of authority, but I feel like it deserves its own kind of walk across the stage. Social proof does demonstrate authority. It does show people, hey, this works for my clients. And I want to reiterate here that when your clients are looking at all the options and trying to decide which one to choose, they are looking for the social proof. That is something that they actually hunt for before they click the buy now button. So if this is missing in your sales marketing communication process, you are missing out on sales. And this might be all you need to do to activate and manifest more sales. I want you to think about what you do when you go to Amazon. I like to pick on Amazon. When you decide to shop for something that you need, don't you go and look at the number of stars? Don't you automatically discredit those that only have 3 stars, right? Like we're only looking at 4 stars and above. We're reading the reviews to see what might be wrong with this. My son has been putting together his Christmas list, and I'm watching him look around for the perfect version of the 3D printer that he wants us to buy for him. And he's been reading reviews. Like that's one of his main things that he looks for. He goes onto YouTube and he's listening to people talk about the 3D printers and what's the good, the bad, the ugly about them. And all of that's kind of weighing on his mind as he decides this is the one I want. And sometimes it's all that it takes is a really bad review of a certain feature in that particular 3D printer and it's out. It's no longer considered. So the power of reviews and social proof is huge. The psychology behind this is really sound. You can read the book called Influence by, what's his name? I did a whole book study on it with my accelerators. It's the psychology of persuasion, and it talks a ton about the importance of social proof. We do what other people do, right? We copycat folks. And this is partly just our brain trying to save energy. Our brains are really lazy. So to avoid thinking and expending energy, our brain is looking for shortcuts. We look to others who have already done what we have done and we trust their opinions. And then we move forward and take action based on what they think. So leverage this. Make sure you're using reviews, collecting reviews, and then putting the reviews somewhere on your website. Make sure you're bringing up case studies and reviews in your emails from time to time. Maybe you have a section in your weekly email newsletter where you highlight what one customer is saying about your product just to affirm people's decision to stay with you, or inviting them to leave a review as well. Maybe you put this in your social media rotation from time to time. Maybe you have a video where you highlight a customer story or you actually interview them, and that's part of your sales process. Where are you using social proof? I also just want to mention here, I've said this before in other podcasts, but did you hear that? That's my bird clock. It's funny. It always happens to go off during my podcast. One of the things I want you to look at is, do you have a buy now button right next to the testimonials and reviews on your website? Make sure you do, because that is often the last thing that someone's looking for. That's all they need to tip them over and say, yep, I'm ready to do this. And if they have to hunt around and look for that buy now button, you've lost some sales. You can also put social proof in the product description on your online store. Try that for a few weeks and see if it causes more people to buy. Another great place to put it. Okay, let's move on to the third principle. The third principle is the principle of direction. Principle of direction. So in the online marketing space, we are living in the world of direct response. Like, we are inviting our clients and our prospects to make a direct response. We put a pitch out there. We say, get onto my email list, and we want them to join the email list. When we say, watch this video, we want them to watch the video. When we say, buy my carrots for the first time, we want them to buy our carrots, right? So we have to get really good at telling people what to do, because a lot of times a customer is coming into your space, they're learning about you, they've been watching some of your social media, they start to like you, maybe they're even on your email list, but they get a little confused. They don't know where to begin. They don't know what to do next. And what we need to remember is that we are always taking our people somewhere. Whether they just joined our community and started watching our social media, they're not ready to buy yet, but what do we want them to do to kind of warm them up? What's that first step? Oh, just watch these videos. Comment on my post. Talk to me at the market. You don't have to buy yet. Just talk to me, or look at my stuff on the table and then go compare it with other places, right? Like, what are those steps that we want them to do in the early stages? Then what do we want them to do next? What's that first thing that you want them to buy? Do you have a clear product ladder? Do you have an ascension process? Like, first you start here, and then you're going to move to this, and then I hope you get this bundle, and then maybe you'll graduate to my subscription. Like, what are those different offers? What order are you putting them in? Have you even thought about that? Do you have a little map? And then are you intentionally telling them, do this first, now try this, now try this? We're always taking people somewhere. That means that we have to have calls to action in place. We have to tell them what to do, how to do it, sometimes why to do it. We're pacing them through this process. And that's why this is called the principle of direction. You are the guide. You must direct them. You have to point the way. Sometimes you even have to tell them how much of a dosage, so to speak, to take. How much fish should I buy in this CSF? How much am I going to use? How much beef should I put into my freezer to last me for 3 months? They may not even know. You have to direct them in terms of the frequency, the pacing, the dosage, how often, and so forth. So your takeaway here from this principle is A, to make sure that you even have a product ladder, that you have things to sell, enough things to sell, and that you've sort of put them in an order. You know what your gateway product is. You know what the next thing is after that. And then you know how you want to bundle things after that to continue to build your lifetime customer value on this one customer. Make sure you have that plan, and then make sure you have some general ideas of when you're going to trigger the call to action, when you're going to direct them to actually buy the next thing. So you do have to make more offers. You do have to actually pitch the sale in order to get people to buy. And this is tricky. I still live in this space sometimes where I get in my own head and I have a hard time asking people to invest in me and buy. I don't know if that's you still too. And I keep coming back and reminding myself, Corinna, your super fans love you. They want to collect everything you have. And you're going to have some people that are going to say no, who aren't going to be as into you. And that's part of the gig. That is part of sales. You will have a percentage of people that will say no, but there's also a percentage of people that say yes. And in order to find those yeses, you must be willing to live with the no's. And in some cases, you'll have more no's than yeses. That's just the conversion rate you have. And that's okay. You can't make that mean anything. So the principle of direction is leaning into this idea that I have to make offers, I have to have offers, and I have to tell people what to do. So do you have a call to action button on your website? Are you creating offers on a regular basis? Are you playing in the offer sandbox? Are you pitching them in an email? Are you sending a weekly email? Are you asking people on the front end of the journey with you before you buy? Are you asking them to watch a video? Are you creating content that's asking them to do things that are a little less risky? Like, oh, just comment on my post. That's not so scary. Let's just build this relationship. Or why don't you subscribe to get this guide or these recipes? That's maybe the next step. That's not so scary, right? Oh, will you leave a review for me? That's another example of a call to action. What do you want people to do? And are you telling them the next step? That's a really fun one to kind of play around with and make sure that you've got that dialed in. So take some time to work on that with your business partner. All right. The next principle I want to talk about is the principle of what I call tunnel vision. Tunnel vision. So this is the idea that when a person is shopping for a solution to their problem, or they're looking for the thing that's going to bring them the desire of their heart, that's going to transform them into the best version of themselves, they go out and they start surveying the landscape. They're looking at all the different ways that might happen for them, that they might get that solution. They're not just going to see your product. They're going to see other farms. They're going to see, in some cases, industries outside of farms that might be able to solve the problem in a different way. They're going to look at them all and investigate and do their research. They're going to look at reviews. They're going to look at the social proof. They're going to ask all these questions. They're going to deal with their objections. And in all of that, what they're going to be doing is saying, what is the one best right way to get where I want to go? I want you to test this on yourself. When you go and shop for a new piece of equipment for the farm, when you go and decide which supplies you need for that pack shed, or which software system you want to use, e-commerce platform for your business, you're looking at several different choices, and the way that you're deciding is you're saying, which one is the best one for me? Which one is the one best right way? You actually think in your mind that there is one best right way. Now, in reality, here's just a quick note. There's probably many different ones that would work really well for you. There are probably several that are great options, and you maybe can't go wrong with, the top 3. But in our minds, we tell ourselves that there's one best right option. And that's what we're seeking. And we're trying to figure out what that is. Your customer is doing the same thing. And when you position your product in your marketing, you want to try and position it as the one best right thing that they need to solve their problem. That's sort of the takeaway that I want you to get from this principle. Are you leveraging the principle of tunnel vision? How are you talking about your product? And can you somehow talk about it in a way so that people feel like this is the best one? How do you do that? And you'll notice that this one works in tandem with the principle of social proof, the principle of authority, and some of the other ones that are coming later. But this is the goal that we're trying to get at. How do we create this tunnel vision? This podcast is sponsored by the Thriving Farmer podcast. Today, we are starting the Farm Business Minute with Michael Kilpatrick from the Thriving Farmer podcast. For the last few weeks, Michael has been sharing valuable business tips. Let's dive in to the question of the week. Michael, welcome back. Today, I want to ask you this question. As you're growing your business, do you need a mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. And I absolutely do think you do. I was incredibly lucky to have multiple mentors, everything from personal life mentors to business mentors to just specific production people that were whizzes with growing vegetables. And I, was very that was what allowed us to scale so quickly when we were in New York. Within a couple of years, we were, basically a noticed player in the farmers market, and people were coming down and going, wow, that's beautiful. But again, we just had people that told us exactly how to do it and could give us that intrinsic feedback on what the challenges were that we were facing. So, and that may be, the mentors come in all shapes and forms too. That could be another local farmers that's, a lot further along the journey. It could be another farmer that's across the country. It could be a paid mentor. I've definitely invested in my fair share of paid mentorship over the years. But I think a couple of things to look for in a mentor is one, a proven track record. So if they have, you want to see that they have a farm that's there and it's working, that they're not, burnt out and they don't have a negative view on life. I think, having that positive view on life that, hey, we've got this and we're making it work is so key. I think another aspect is they run anything like a business. If they just, have a lot of cash floating around and they're not really sure what's going on in their business, that's a red flag. Yeah. And I think another one too would just be well respected as well. You don't want someone that everyone's like, well, that's someone that they don't want to do business with. So having someone that's really respected in your community and their community is important as well.
Where would a person go and find a mentor if they were getting started in a local small town?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say first go to your farmers markets if you're looking for something specific to what you're doing, or go visit the other CSAs or their farms in your area. So really just meet the other farmers and start talking to them. And again, don't the first time you say, hey, I want you to mentor, make sure you start building that relationship. I think another thing would be going to local farming conferences. So if your state has an organic farming conference, make sure you go there, because frequently those mentor type may be speaking. And so you can find out, who they are, and hear their style and learn more about their operation before you start making that connection. I think another one too, if you're not trying to get specifically one super local, you can't find someone local because there are areas that just don't have a lot of farmers in them, is going online to some of the farming Facebook groups or other online communities and really starting to just check out what's available and who's out there. I mean, I love to just, scroll and see who's got beautiful displays of produce and who's really, breaking things down in an easy to understand way, or saying, hey, look at our carrots. These are we seeded. This is the roller we use, and this is our weed control. And this is our sales for that. So finding those people that are willing to share that information are frequently really good quality mentors.
Yeah, I'm also just going to bring up podcasts. I know you and I both have a podcast, but a lot of times I find the mentors that I want to follow as guests on some of these podcasts, and they're not always even farming podcasts. Sometimes they're business or marketing podcasts. If I want to maybe learn SEO, for instance, I might go look for a podcast just about SEO, and all of a sudden I'm learning from these people. So if you're a podcaster and you like to listen, that's another great place to go. It's also interesting because one day you wake up and you realize that you could be a mentor to someone else. And that's always a really powerful moment.
Yeah, that you have something, and you don't have to have it all together. You don't have to have it all made. I sure don't. We always have production challenges, but you have to be 1 to 2 to 3 steps in front of the other person. So, hey, this is how we seed a tray of lettuce, and this is how we make sure we get good germination. For a brand new farmer, that's, rocket science, and they would be so grateful for that information.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Michael. Thanks for being a mentor.
Thank you. If you want even more farming tips like this one, make sure to check out the Thriving Farmer podcast. Every week, we connect with an interesting guest, from farmers, both new and experienced, talented artisans, or an industry expert sharing about how farmers can thrive. With over 250 episodes and 1 million downloads, there is an episode for everyone. Visit thrivingfarmerpodcast.com or search your favorite podcast app for Thriving Farmer.
That was your farm business tip of the week. Check out the Thriving Farmer podcast with Michael Kilpatrick on your favorite podcast app. And now back to the show. All right, let's move on to our next principle. And this one is called the why now principle. The principle of the why now. You want to practice creating communication and messaging that gives your clients a reason to take action now. Like I said earlier, we're always taking our people somewhere. We want to get really clear about what is the next step we want them to take. But sometimes our customers and our prospects, they hit a roadblock. There's something that's very confronting about the decision that you're asking them to make. And they kind of get into this like coma of, nope, I'm good right now. I want to stay here where it's safe, because at least I know what this life is like, and I'm not sure I want to take the risk and go over there because it might not be any better. And so they just stay in this safe zone. and they put off those confronting decisions that are going to involve your product and, mean going forward. And so we want to somehow show them why they need to take action now, why they shouldn't put this off until next April or, next year. I do this very intentionally, I think, with my CSA renewal campaign. At the end of October, I'm trying to get 400 people to say yes to us again for next year. And they're going to have to wait 6 months until they actually fulfill on the order. And that's kind of a big ask. So how do I help them see that you need to actually pay for this now? And that means that I have to create an offer in such a way that I leverage this why now principle. Now, the way you often see this work is elements in the offer that create a sense of urgency. Sometimes you'll see deadlines, like this offer goes away in 5 days, or only good for this weekend, or a limited amount, a limited quantity, a limited time, a limited seating, limited edition, the use of the limiteds. Those are the most common ways that I see this, but either way, you've got to create some sort of element that will push people into a corner and get them to evaluate, like, why should I take this action right now? What's in it for me? What is the benefit? Why will this be a better idea to do now as opposed to next week or next month or next year? And that takes a little bit of creativity, playing in the offer sandbox, but this is a big one. Some of you guys, all you have to do is work on this piece and you would start seeing more sales. Maybe your offer is missing an urgency element or a scarcity element, and simply by leveraging that piece of the offer, you'll get more people to buy. Moving on, our next principle of farm marketing is the principle of objections. Your customers have issues that are keeping them from moving forward with saying yes to your product or service. It's completely normal. There's nothing wrong with that. You should expect that to be the case. This is kind of one of those laws of farm marketing. Your customers will have objections. These usually manifest in the form of frequently asked questions where they just need some clarity on the process and how this will work. How will fulfillment of the order work? How am I going to get the product in my hands? What do I have to do? What does pickup look like? How much does it cost? What's going to be in the CSA share? Do people like it? What are the hangups and problems that customers have in terms of actually using the product? And am I going to have those same hangups? This is that point where customers are usually doing research, they're investigating, they're trying to find out what might be the speed bumps along the way of actually using the product. Sometimes the objection takes the form of a limiting belief where they're saying things to themselves like, I can't afford that, or my kids won't eat those vegetables, or I'm not good enough to actually be able to cook all of that food, or what if I waste? I don't want to waste. Wasting is bad. And then it's your job to be able to shift those limiting beliefs and help them find a bridge to a new thought. And that becomes part of your intentional marketing messaging process. I'm trying to think of an example of what this might look like. So for a CSA, I know that one of the things that comes up for people is, I'm not going to be able to use all that food. I'm going to waste a lot of it in the process, and I don't want to waste things. And one of the things I might tell people as a bridge to a new thought in some of my marketing and messaging, which I have done, is I try to reframe the experience as a process. I say, listen, you are probably going to waste some food in your first year. The first year, second year of CSA is actually an adjustment. It's hard. You're going to hit a wall around week 7, and that everyone does, and it's completely normal, and you have to go through the wall. And we're going to walk you through the process. Once you get into our community, we have tools to help you push through that wall. We're going to show you things that you can do with the stuff that's stockpiling in your fridge so that you feel like you don't waste. But I do get really honest with them about, hey, this is going to happen, but don't worry, we're going to hold your hand, and you have to go through this wasteful moment. You have to experience that in order to get to the desired transformation that you want. In other words, you can't avoid that part of the journey. That's a completely new thought that I have to put out into the space, and it's something that I would do intentionally, proactively in my messaging before they ever say buy now, in order to get them to say yes. When you are managing this principle of objections as a marketer, you are trying to identify what are the objections my customers have, what are the frequently asked questions that they have, what are the limiting beliefs, write them all down, get really clear on what they are. And this usually happens through the process of customer research. So maybe you're looking at some of the reviews. What are people saying? Maybe you're actually getting on the phone and talking to your clients and asking them, what did you go through when you first bought our product? What were some of the issues that you had? Was it easy to buy? Were you confused about how to even put this into the online store, into your cart? Figure out what some of those stumbling blocks were. And then when you're armed with that knowledge, you can create messaging on the front end in your sales system to try and address it. So maybe you're creating social media posts that answer some of those questions for people, like, what are the pickup sites for your farm store sales? Well, maybe that's part of your regular rotation in your communication, where you let people know that every 2 weeks it comes up in social media in a different kind of format. Or maybe you have a section on your online store in the header where that's really clear on the front end before they ever buy, because that might be the thing that they need to know most before they're ready to continue with the buying process. So identify what those are and then create messaging to deal with them. This is the principle of objections. Almost every objection can be overcome, but you need to know what they are, and then you need to practice different ways of moving people through them. All right, let's move on to our next one. The principle of cause and effect. Oh, I love this one. And this one might be new to you. It was new to me when I first learned it, and I have since found myself leaning into it quite heavily. Everything that happens in your experience is happening because something happened before it. There was a cause and then there was an effect. So you decided to have a cup of coffee this morning because something triggered to make you decide you wanted to do that. Or you decided to take the route you did to the farm market this week because of some sort of trigger, right? There's a cause and there's an effect. Somebody decided to buy your bunch of carrots when they saw you at the farmer's market this week because something happened, or they had a thought, or somebody said something, or they saw an ad. There was a trigger, there was a moment that caused them to decide to do it. Now, the way that this flips, the way this works in farm marketing is that you want to position your product, your service, as the cause of your customer's transformation. So the transformation that they're after, the desire of their heart, the solution to their problem, is the effect of your particular product. I want you to think about that for a minute, because that's sort of probably not where you expected me to go with this. Your solution, your product, your beef, your lamb, your flowers, your CSA will have an effect on your customer. It's going to create some kind of life transformation. For your super fans, the ones who are ideally suited to that product, their life gets better. They become a better version of themselves. They jump over this cliff and overcome a problem. It might not happen immediately, but over time, they will get there. And the reason they get there is because of your product or service. When you're talking about your product in your marketing, that's how you need to position it, as the cause of this transformation effect. Now, how do you figure out how to do this? Well, there's a really powerful exercise that I teach inside of my customer research bootcamp in Farm Marketing School, and it's called the before and after grid. Basically, what you're going to do is get a piece of paper out or a Google Doc, and you're going to draw a line right down the middle. On one side, you're going to have before, and on the right side, you're going to have after. And you're going to write out, what was my customer's life like before they used my product? And what was my customer's life like after they started using my product regularly? And you're going to write down everything you can think of. And this is going to be things like feelings that they have. How do they feel about themselves before they use your product? It's going to be, how did they think? What were some of the thoughts they had, those limiting beliefs? And how did those shift to, how did their identity shift as a result of using your product? What were some of the benefits, the deliverables that they got that changed how they live in the world? So maybe they made friends with a bunch of people and they started to experience community and felt like they belonged, right? Those are emotions, those are thoughts. But also, what were some of the actions and behaviors that changed? What were the actual experiences that began to manifest in their world because of your product? I want you to imagine that you have a camera that you're holding and you're following around your ideal customer for several days, and you are trying to snap a picture of those moments in time where they experience the transformation they're seeking because of your product. What is that moment? Is it the kids having a really yummy lunch in their school? They're opening up their lunch and they're eating the kohlrabi sticks and a really healthy meal while everyone else around them is eating Lunchables? Like, is that something where the mom is feeling really proud that that's happening for her son or daughter? Or is it everyone hanging out in the backyard because you're hosting a giant grill fest and your friends have come over and you're grilling the steaks and someone says something amazing about the food that you've just fed them, and there's that moment of pride and that you've gotten to share and experience community around good food? Like, what are these moments? What do those look like? I don't know if that's actually a real thing for you, but there are patterns for your clients, certain things that happen to a lot of them that they're really excited about, where they feel like, oh, this is what it's all about. And when you know what those are the effects, right? Those are the effects as a result of eating your food, your vegetables, your meat, your CSA, your flower subscription, your membership, all of that. That is the cause of this new life, this better version of themselves, this identity that they're taking on. When you're talking about your product in your marketing, you want to be positioning it as the cause of that effect. So what does that look like? That means you got to know, first of all, what are the before and afters? And then you want to be talking about the after shots a lot. You want to be taking pictures of it. You want to be sharing pictures that your customers are taking of their life and putting that into the world. You want to tell the case studies and the stories. And you want to be constantly pointing to your product as the reason for that happening, and insinuating that your life will be better too when you use our services and our product. Okay. This is kind of a fun one to play with, but I want you to take some time brainstorming. How can I use the principle of cause and effect in my messaging and in my marketing? How can I be putting that into my emails or onto my social media or into a YouTube video or into my customer interactions face to face, one-on-one? Are there stories I can be telling? Think on that one. That one's a fun one. Okay, the last principle I want to talk about is the principle of reciprocity. So this rule states that we want to repay another person for something that they have provided for us. We want to keep the relationship in balance. There's an example that comes to mind where I have a friend that likes to give me presents and is giving me these little gifts all the time as a sign of their affection and friendship for me. And yet it's starting to feel uncomfortable and unbalanced for me because I feel like I need to do something in return. I need to take them out to dinner now, or I need to do something that spends a certain amount of money in order to keep that relationship balanced. And this kind of feeling is being caused by the rule of reciprocity that's at play in our society. Actually, societies are built on this rule for a reason, because it keeps our quote unquote tribe safe and allows us to prosper. We learn this as a child very early on, that you don't want to be a freeloader, right? If somebody does something nice for you, you say thank you, and then one day you may be called upon to do something nice in return. And it is one of the greatest fears we have, is to be seen as someone who takes advantage of other people's kindness. And we are constantly managing this sense of balance in our different relationships, in our friendships, with our partner, with our kids. We have to keep that equilibrium. This is also going on with your customers. And one of the great ways that you can build a relationship faster with someone is to give a gift or some kind of value in advance out of goodwill. So to present your customers with a free sample, or maybe you give them a lead magnet. This is essentially what a lead magnet is trying to do. You give them some content that they're looking for that's going to solve a problem or answer a question for them. And they feel so grateful that you've taught them this new thing, or you've helped them overcome a particular mindset block, or you've entertained them in a particularly powerful way. And now they feel indebted to you. They feel like they want to do something in return. And if they can't pay you for it to settle the score, then it's just kind of this thing hanging out there in space. And one day they might be called upon to return the favor. And a lot of people don't like to live in that limbo. And so they want to settle the score and even things up. Now, when you understand how the rule of reciprocity works, it can be a really great way to trigger sales. It can be a great way to encourage the relationship with a future customer to happen faster. And I always like to look at it as a opportunity to show goodwill, like just to give things away, knowing and trusting that it's going to come back to me at some point. So maybe this customer won't actually decide to buy my product, but I know that for the most part, when I give generously and I share ideas, or I share content, or I show up and go over the top with my tips and tricks and hacks with my farm clients, that many of them are like, man, this is so awesome. I've learned so much from her, that is part of what factors into their decision to start buying from me, because they want to thank me. They want to even that score. This also works with products or with customers where I sometimes go into the online store and I drop in like $10 in store credit. I don't even tell them that it's going to happen. Sometimes I do tell them that I did it. I write a note and I say, hey, I'm so grateful for all the things that you do for our farm. I just wanted you to know I put $20 of store credit into your local line account. And it's so funny to watch what that does, because now all of a sudden that person feels like, oh, they just put something into this relational account that we have, and I need to even it out again. And then they'll go and spend it. And not only will they spend that $20, but they'll spend $40 to try and make things balanced again. So I'm trying to share a few examples of how this actually works in sales, but it's used quite a bit in the marketing industry. So when you're building an offer, sometimes the idea of creating a gift, adding a bonus gift, creates this feeling of, oh, wow, that's really generous of them. I need to make sure that I take the offer and reciprocate in kind. Or I'm going to give you a free sample. Don't you want to try my ear of corn? It's the best corn in Northwest Ohio. And you're going to be a lot more successful in getting them to buy their first dozen if you've given them one ear for free, because of this rule of reciprocity. So where does this work in your business? Where can you be trusting in this principle that when you give in advance, people will want to give in return? Can you lean into that? I think this requires a mindset of abundance, or it helps to have a mindset of abundance. I like to think of the metaphor of a electric circuit. And when we trust in this principle of reciprocity and we give first, like we take some of our resources, our time, our energy, even sometimes our money, because we give a product for free. When we trust and we put that out into the space, we move it forward into the circuit. We push the energy into the circuit. And we have to trust that it's going to come back around and complete the circuit. And oftentimes, it ends up creating additional energy, additional momentum, additional revenue, and we can just keep pushing that ball of energy around. But it's a little bit of a trust fall that's going to actually happen. There are some times when it doesn't, when people take advantage of it and they're freeloaders and they walk off with this free product, or they don't say thank you, or they don't try to balance the scale, and that's fine. But for many of the people that I have relationships with, it does work. And not only do I push that ball of energy forward, but it ends up coming back twofold, threefold, fourfold, so that I have more to work with. I've just found that to be true for me. So I just want to challenge you to, are you going to be that person that closes the circuit, that keeps the energy moving, or are you going to, open it so that the energy stops moving forward? Are you going to clutch and hoard those resources thinking, oh, people are going to take advantage of me, I don't want to trust it. And then you don't move from that place of inertia. And so nothing ever changes. When you're building your marketing and your messaging, if you can trust in the principle of reciprocity and put something out there that will give something out of goodwill, when you trust in that honoring of the exchange of value, right? I'm going to give you something valuable here in advance, trusting that you're going to bring it back to me. You're either going to buy something or something else good is going to come of that. You're going to be a relationship or an affiliate, or you're going to send me a customer. You're going to talk well about me to someone else. My reputation's going to go up. All of those other positive halo effect things are going to happen that can help my business. You're going to trust that will occur. So, don't give it all away for free, like show some restriction, but don't be afraid to test this law of reciprocity. I want to just share one example. I've talked about it before, where this really showed up powerfully for us. And that was when we did our Feed the Need bags for the first time a couple of years ago. I did an entire episode all about this, so I'm going to try to summarize this quickly. But Kurt and I had a bunch of vegetables left over at the end of the season in December. We were just going to donate them to the food bank. And I had an idea. I said, well, Kurt, what if we actually invited our customers to do the giving for us? And we just say, hey, we've got these, we're going to put these bags of food together, valued at like $35. And we're going to put them in our online store for free. I'm like, actually, no, I'm going to charge $1 just to cover the cost of, getting them to the customer. And we're just going to say, come get a bag and take it to somebody who needs it, who could use some cheer this holiday season. And that way we can multiply our effect. We aren't the only ones who know about the giving or do the giving, but we invite our customers to be ambassadors and be the hands and feet of our business and impact a ton of people in our community that they know, and they can hand this back to them and they can have those really powerful, crucial conversations as they're giving the gift. That's actually probably what the person wants more than the food. They want a chance to have community and interact with someone and have a conversation. So we're going to make that moment happen. And it was so cool to see the response. Like everyone was like, this is so awesome. And it created all this momentum for our brand. So that was a moment where I guess technically we gave away a lot of value. Like the vegetables themselves were valued at thousands of dollars. And we just put that out into the space, moved that ball of energy into the circuit. And here's what just totally blew me away. People ended up spending so much in the online store. As they grabbed that bag, they also purchased $40, $50 worth of vegetables for their own Thanksgiving table or their own Christmas table and their own pantries. So we had one of our biggest sales days in history, aside from our CSA renewal campaigns. And I think it was because of this rule of reciprocity. I didn't mean to do it for that reason, but I think that's partly why it was happening. They were like, wow, this is so great. There's been this imbalance in the force, right? And I want to right it. I want to show them my appreciation. I want to make sure I don't look like a freeloader. So I'm going to also support them and buy some of their food. It was this awesome experience. So yeah, we took a risk and we put something out there for free, but it came back around and not only blessed us in terms of revenue, but we saw the ripple effect of just the blessing all the people who got these bags and the energy that was created from those interactions, the halo effect that it had on our brand, the reputation that it gave us as just being kind and, compassionate. Of course, I want people to be inspired by that. So I could never have created that without having this moment of trust and being like, let's go. Let's just send this energy into the universe and trust that it will come back and bless us tenfold. So I want you to think about where can you leverage the rule of reciprocity in your business. And there's a really great book that goes into this in great detail. It shares the psychology behind it. It's called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. It's spelled Cialdini. This is one of the best marketing books you will ever read. And the very first chapter is all about this concept of reciprocity, the rule of reciprocity. It's fascinating. So I encourage you to go check that out. I'll put the link in the show notes. But I want you to think about how you can be trusting that if you give in advance, the rule of reciprocity will fire and it will come back and bring revenue into your business. Or maybe it's not revenue. Maybe it's some other asset that's equally as valuable to the life and health of your business. All right, there you have it. Those are my top 7 principles of farm marketing that I think will help you make more sales. And I hope you enjoyed their tour as they came onto the stage one by one. What I want you to do is take a look at each of them. And some of them, as I was talking them out, some of them you're going to be like, yeah, that's my old friend. I know that one. I use that one a lot. I'm very comfortable using that principle. And they're going to jump out at you. They're going to feel like strengths in your marketing and sales strategy. And so I want to applaud you. You know them well. You're using them well. Great job. Some of them may be new to you, or they're a slightly different shift, right? You're putting on a new set of glasses and you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. That's another way I could position and talk about my product. And I want you to see if you can come up with some ways to start highlighting that particular element more, that particular principle. What's really powerful is if you can get multiples of these principles working at the same time, because I think you can see how they work in tandem. If you can actually get them to work together, like 3 or 4 of them, you'll notice that it really accentuates the marketing potential of your business and it'll drive more sales. So just play around with that. Let me know what you think of this. There are other ones that I could have brought up, like I could have talked about the whole concept of logic and how important it is to deal with logic. I didn't get into all of the principles, but these are some of the big ones that I think I see at work in my business. I want to challenge you to look for them in yours. All right, that's all I got. You guys, I hope you have an amazing week. Christmas is right around the corner. I want to warn you that I will not be dropping an episode next week. I'm going to be taking the week of Christmas off, but I will be right back in your earbuds the week after that. I wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Take some time off and be with your family, my friends. It's important. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can grab the URL link and text it to a farmer. Make sure they know about this podcast. Say, hey, man, you got to listen to this. This was good stuff. Or go leave me a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. I am so close to hitting my goal of a certain number of reviews. And I would love it if a couple of you would take the time right now to just go and leave me 5 stars or write a little sentence. That would be super valuable to me. That would be a huge thank you. So please consider that. Don't forget, if you want to get onto my email list to get more farm marketing strategy and tips, I drop into your inbox every single week. Until you unsubscribe, I'm going to try to coach you to greatness. You can do so by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. That's all I got. Thanks for joining me today. I will catch you in 2 weeks on the My Digital Farmer podcast. Bye-bye.